Hello everyone, Gosha here. Today I will be talking about something that few people talk about. We are used to the conversations about dysregulation, needing to take more control over our emotions and our internal states, but few people talk about the times when we overdo it, when we overdo the regulation. And this is called over-regulation. I think this is very important in the discussions of highly sensitive people because they tend to do that a lot. Let me talk about briefly what I've just talked about in the last episode. I talked about dysregulation and high sensitivity and how so many highly sensitive people are dysregulated because they are so touched by different stimuli that make them sort of reactive, like a flag, waving depending on whichever directions they're being affected from. This could be a person that was mean to them, or contrary, that was nice to them, and that affects their mood. And that could be a situation or environment that really makes them feel super bad and they're super reactive. But what happens on the flip side is highly sensitive people start seeing very early on in their childhood years that their sort of ups and downs disrupts some environment as well. So when they are affected by the environment, the people, the situations, the noise, the whatever is affecting them, is overstimulating them and maybe making them dysregulated, they would naturally have to release this in some ways or find some ways to regulate themselves healthily. But we all know that this is not often the case, and our parents were not teaching us how to properly and healthily regulate our emotions. Most of the times, people who take care of highly sensitive people can't provide enough of care and nurturing to highly sensitive people in the way that would need it. And they need it a lot because of their very open energetic system. These are some of the things I talk a lot about in this channel: the mind-body connection, the energetic makeup that make us react to environment in some way, that make us interact with environment, with people in a very unique way. Now, let's talk about the topic of this video. When we are so affected by the stimuli, we take a 180 degrees kind of flip to the other side and we over-regulate. We learn to over-regulate. And what it means is excessive control over behaviors and states and expressions relative to all kinds of rules that might be happening around us, or the rules that we think we must follow in order to accomplish something in the relationships or in the environment. So it's, again, like I was talking a lot in my past videos, the sort of struggle between the independence and personal freedom and self-sovereignty versus belonging and being part of society. And because of all the internal rules, highly sensitive people observe and internalize. They observe, like, okay, mommy and daddy is acting this way when I'm acting this way, so I better correct because I can do it, right? Because we're so in tune, we can observe it, then we take responsibility for changing our behaviors so that others can feel better around us. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is, like I started saying, when there are a lot of actual rules around us, you should act in such and such way. Good girls don't do this. And we kind of memorize and we take in all these orders. So we kind of remain safe. right? We have to do everything to survive as children. And because of this over-regulation, we try to control ourselves. We try to make a good face to difficult situation. We don't express our emotions because we have so many of them and people don't react to them too well. Or we become perfectionistic, right? Or we start pleasing others. There are so many behaviors that you can call as perfectionism or something like that, or you can't really call them as anything, but it's the sort of behavior when you become uptight, when you become overly self-control and maybe very stoic in your behavior, very withdrawn and not showing much emotion. And many highly sensitive people, like for example INFJs, I'm an INFJ, will often be called aloof or distant or withdrawn, even from very early childhood. And INTJs, that could be another type, but it doesn't really matter what kind of type. But this is our way to show up in an environment. It's when we take control over how we look as, how we express ourselves as, and we control our emotional expressions, our behavior, our words. And because we have so much fine attunement to how we say things affect people, how we behave, like in terms of our body language, and we change that to kind of be around people and maybe be more friendly or be more accessible, or whatever way we think we would be better received by others, right? So all these kind of ways are a product of this over-regulation, these sort of inner orders that we put on ourselves to produce a certain persona, to produce a certain product that people can see. And maybe it can also be for us to see this sort of product, because over time we start identifying with this. And no one wants to be a bad boy or bad girl or bad person if that's what people call this sort of expression. So they start identifying, and that becomes the sort of mask that they start even carrying around at home and when they are all alone. Unfortunately, this is what leads to the things that I often talk about here. Things like anxiety, things like depression, things like body pains and tension and some sort of disease, because we block these emotions from expressing. We disidentify with these states. We do everything to not have them, to not feel them, to not express them, to not rock the boat, to not show people that we are not in control, right? So this is sort of flip side from what we think is dysregulation. When someone is frantic, when they're all over the place, this could be one of the ways we act, we are dysregulated. But on the flip side, many lean towards this sort of more neurotic expression, or the lack of expression, which is over-regulated. And the problem with this, what it does also is blocking creativity. It is blocking the sort of unfolding of our life and unfolding of our personality, because we get so used to overcorrecting ourselves and telling, oh, don't do this, or don't act like this because you're going to be badly received, or there are these consequences, or maybe you will vibe lower if you are a spiritual person and you've internalized all the rules that the New Age world told you, or the Stoicism told you how you should be like. And I believe there are a lot of negative repercussions of New Age spirituality, of this sort of stoicism philosophy that so many people readily started adopting in the last years and decades. Because they don't think what they're really doing. They think they're doing something good because, wow, now I'm so stoic, now I'm so zen, now I'm so peaced out, and I'm so chilled because I'm just all compassionate, and this is the rule that I've put on myself. I have to act in a certain way, and it's not even about what people see, but about the sort of identity. It can be really just an internalized rule that dictates how you express or live your emotions, live your emotional wave, allow things to move through you, allow creativity to move through you, allow different states change and transform as we alchemize them through this inner movement of energies. When we over-control, when we stifle our expressions because of the rules we put on ourselves, this is how it is to be a good person, this is how it is to be spiritual, this is how it is to vibe higher, and all these conditions that we put on ourselves, essentially, we don't let ourselves be who we are. And you can't be really authentic doing all these things. This is when we stifle our freedom. This is when we stifle our expression in so many different fronts. Because when you stifle your expression on one front, like emotions, you stifle it on all other fronts. It may be then hard to follow your intuition. It may be hard to follow your genuine creative side. Maybe these kind of people are only creating sort of art that would make them seem pleasing or cool or well received. And it's not really coming from, their guts, from their heart. It's a sort of well-packaged expression, something that we want people to see and something that we want to believe ourselves are. So, like I say, there is a lot of threats coming in with the over-regulation. Like I said, anxiety, panic attacks, pains, disease, tension, headaches. All these kind of things happen because we are constantly in a sort of self-controlled way when we don't feel free to just let it go, to let it breathe through us, to let it move, to just be pissed off, to say something, a spiritual person wouldn't say. And it's okay to be whoever you are, because there are low chances that you would be really, really a horrible person. That's what I'm guessing. And having been dealing with a lot of highly sensitive people over the last decade or so, including myself, I know there is always something in the back of our minds that we don't all of a sudden become animals and start trashing people when we let ourselves express anger, rage, and all the emotions that are freely coming up and are communicating through our bodies. What we need to do really, how we need to listen to them and express them, and then take action through them in our day-to-day situations. Because maybe they are telling us that we have to set boundaries, that we have to be short with that person, or we don't have to be nice with everyone. And this topic is something really tied to the energetic makeup. Like I was saying, the mind-body connection, very specific for highly sensitive people. Something I started writing about 2 years ago in my book that is slowly finding its way to publishing in a very unorthodox way. And I will be posting an announcement about this soon enough. But if you want to read about topics like this in depth, and that energetic makeup and that mind-body connection that pointed me to understanding all these things about high sensitivity, definitely sign up to my newsletter, because I will be notifying my email list about the publishings that I will be sharing quite soon. For now, I hope that was useful. I hope that will give you a little bit to think about when you are over-regulating, when you are trying to be stoic and zen about everything, and see if there's any way that you can just be yourself, just be free.